Clearly, I think we're going to have some show and tell, so maybe we can save the best for last today. Just like the rest of the format, throughout the rest of the afternoon, we will be presenting and listening to our presenter for the first 15-20 minutes. We'll have some questions from the judges, and then we'll open up for a couple of questions from the audience. At the very end of the presentation, we will excuse ourselves, and we have the tough task of selecting the top 3 winners for today, who will each be receiving a cash prize, which will be announced later tonight at the Bravo Awards, not held too far from here, but we'll give you some more details, I think, at the very end of this. I don't know all the details, but I'm looking at you guys, so yes, indeed. Lockers on Wheels is our final presentation this afternoon. The idea for Lockers on Wheels came to Mr. Brad Shannon after he helped a friend run a weekend cycling event. And there he witnessed participants struggling really to manage their personal possessions. And if you've ever been to an event, and whether it's cycling or something else, you know what he's talking about. His block of lockers on a trailer provides secure storage for participants and spectators of running and cycling events, as well as attendees of fairs, festivals, concerts, cultural events. Service allows participants to relax, perform better, not have to worry about their personal belongings, as well as provide a resource to help the on-site vendors sell a little bit more product. Let's hear more about it, and welcome Brad Shannon to the stage.
Hi, I'm Brad. Is this on? I guess it's not. Check. Oh, there it goes. Yeah, here we go. I'm Brad Shannon. I'm honored to be here, and I'd like to thank our distinguished panel and welcome our audience. My business is Lockers on Wheels, and I'd like to share a little bit of information about it with you. My rolling on the road branding is going to be Stash My Stuff. And so, as my introduction spoke to, I helped a friend run a weekend-long cycling festival in downtown Fort Collins. Maybe you know it, Fort Collins Cycling Festival. And I saw some people doing some really strange stuff with their stuff. I saw a guy lock his goodie bag and his sandals to a lamppost on Oak Street and ride 90 miles, and then come back and lock his bike to there and put on his sandals and go to the beer tent. I had a friend who was going to ride with her goodie bag strung around her like a messenger bag. And she was only doing a short ride, but still a rather uncomfortable sort of circumstance. I have an acquaintance who races, and he's one of these really hardcore guys. He rides to his races whenever possible, like he needs to do more miles. And he has a strategy where he goes and he finds the paramedics, and he makes friends with the paramedics, and he sticks his stuff next to the paramedics, and he hopes they don't get a call. He hopes there's no accident. Because otherwise, his stuff will still be there maybe, but the ambulance is gone and his sort of aura of protection is gone. And then I ran into a guy who owns a Fort Collins restaurant. Maybe you've eaten at his place, and it was serves your beer. And he was clacking around on Oak Street in his cycling shoes. He had ridden, he lived close enough that he rode from his home and rode the 90-mile route, and then realized, hey, there's a social scene here. There's free beer, there's music, and there's friends of mine that I want to hang out with. And so he was kind of wandering around the street looking a little perplexed, and there was an expo vendor there that had been selling last year's models sandals for the whole weekend. It was the end of the weekend. They were out. They were cleaned out, $10 a pair, and they'd been a big hit. And so he goes over there. He's a size 10, and he's looking at their selection, and there's nothing there, and they're apologizing for that. And he points to the back of their little tent where there's like a milk crate, and he's like, "What are those?" And they had been carrying these shoes around for so long that they had a bunch of mismatched, unmated, random ones that were bound for the garbage. And he said, "Hand me that crate." And he pulled up a chair, and he walked off with a red size 9 and a blue size 11. And he was ready to pay for it. He was ready to hand them $10 for that pair of sandals, and they said, no, we can't do that. So I was reflecting on that experience over the course of the weekend, the next week, And it just hit me, you know. What if you had some sort of portable, personal, convenient, on-demand storage system that you could take to events and take care of that problem? So here's my mock-up. Oh, sorry. So Stash My Stuff brings this trailer to events. And not just athletic events, cultural events, fairs and festivals, anywhere, typically logistically, where there's a challenge of people having personal items, relatively small stuff, that they, you know, maybe rode the shuttle, maybe they biked to the event, maybe they parked a half mile away and don't want to have to schlep it back to the car. And so basically we park this in proximity to the event expo, near the start-finish line, maybe near the entrance and exit. And depending on how closely they're screening, the kind of things you might be allowed to take in or not, or inside or outside the entrance gate too. So it's not like TSA, right? You either keep your penknife or you miss your flight. So anyway, the market is pretty promising. My friends at endurance sports events and expo management tell me there's 600 athletic events in Colorado annually. A full calendar for me, kind of as a baseline, is about 70 days a year, sort of 35 weekends from spring to fall. And so then from there, you know, there's at least that many other sorts of fairs and festivals and things. And so some of the folks we're talking to are the Loveland Sculpture Fest, where you park at 287 and 29th, and they haul you 2 miles to the west to go to the actual sculpture fair. Frozen Dead Guy Days, anybody been there? Where, you know, downtown Netherlands about the size of this stage. And so one of the main messages on the homepage of the Frozen Dead Guy Days website is, get on the bus and ride up the canyon. Don't drive up here, because they can't manage that much traffic. So there's a number of, it's not a perfect fit for every event, but there's a significant number of events where the logistics make this something that the event directors, the event managers, the race directors recognize as a value-added service that improves the experience of their participants and their attendees. And so in terms of competition, you know, we've got the status quo, right? I'm going to select it back to the car here, wait, you know, I'll be back in 20 minutes here. Hold this, honey, I'll be right back. Right? You've got the people who kind of freelance and leave it somewhere and hope for the best. And then you've got some folks in New Jersey that will charge you freight and ship you as many lockers as you want to use for your event. But you have to have the tent and some sort of ground cover for it, and freight being what it is, it's not a very cost-effective approach. There's an organization outside of Chicago that has, I call it a Death Star. They went 40 feet long with 350 lockers, a built-in generator, token dispenser, upgraded tow package truck, custom and everything. I mean, it's $150,000, $175,000 rig, right? I can go and service and make my margins on events that are 300 to 500 people. These guys are towing all over the country because they have to go to huge events that have tremendously large sponsorship packages, because they need to get thousands and thousands of dollars from the events themselves just to justify however many hundreds of miles they have to drive to service the event. So that's market, that's competition. Generally, my launch plan, so I was thinking, you know, those guys went Lamborghini. I was thinking I didn't want to go Cadillac. I wanted to make it very manageable. And so my plan was to start picking events and serving this summer. One concern that occurred to me was, if somebody else sees me out there and figures it's a good idea, my barrier to entry isn't very high. And so at this point in time, my launch plan is to take the balance of this year to stack my calendar, cherry pick all the ideal events logistically and attendance-wise and geographically, hit it hard with the trailer rolling into 2013, have a full calendar of events, and grab as much market share right straight out before too many other people know about it as soon as possible. So the financials, you know, it's viable, it's sustainable. We think that we can do a second trailer probably late spring, early summer of 2014, and then potentially looking at the numbers, we're going to have to see if that will support adding a third unit for 2015. So the other selling points that I have, right? Value added raises the level, the quality of the experience of the event, enables your attendees to relax and enjoy themselves, not worry about, you know, well, it was supposed to be 50 and now it's 75 and I've got my jacket tied around my waist. Help the participants perform better if they're focused on their run or their ride performance. It provides volunteers as well as VIPs a perk where you can have your volunteer staff show up, and typically at a fair or cultural festival, they're going to want to stick around or come before and enjoy the festival, then do their volunteer time. This gives them a place to stash their stuff. It also supports vendor sales. I don't know how many times you've maybe been at an event where you saw something that, you know, might have been an impulse buy, but you don't want to schlep it around, and so you don't. And so then later on, you think you're going to hit it on the way back out to the car, and then you're on the way home, and you didn't buy it, you forgot. And so from an event management, an event promotion, an event sponsor, and vendor sales kind of perspective, then there's this opportunity where we can cooperate through the event with the vendors, and the vendors can say, here, go see our friend Brad on the way out, you know, or you know, while you're enjoying yourself, if you're not leaving yet, you know, use this token, have a free locker, it's built into the price of the sale or the vendor fee or whatever. So I have some early commitments. Endurance Sports Marketing in particular has been very supportive and is very interested in this service. They run 50 to 60 events annually in Colorado, including the Denver Half Marathon, where the parking area is a half-mile away from the start-finish line. The Grand Photo Vale, where who knows how far you're going to have to park before, you know, in order to make your way through the village of Vale. Fans on the Field, which in some cases the parking's maybe not all that far away unless you don't want to pay. It's not Invesco anymore. Sports Authority parking fees. And then my friends at Fort Con Cycling Fest would like me to service their event as well. How's my time? 5 minutes. So, you know, I think I've laid it out, and if you have questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Thank you. Give him a round. All right, do we have any questions? Guys? Yes? You want first?
I haven't read a lot of business plans, but and I'm glad to see that we have more financial information, because that was going to be my #1 question.
Sure.
Is it didn't appear like that you were making much money, and I wanted to say, why do you want to do this?
Right. Well, and so before I started figuring out some of the alternative revenue streams, some cooperative marketing opportunities, some opportunities to wrap and label and do some sponsorship on the exterior square footage of the unit itself, and to work in cooperation with the events to extend the brand imprint at a particular event for their sponsors, then, you know, and frankly, finances aren't my strong suit by any stretch. So it was one of those things where I was looking at the Chicago folks going, I don't know how they make it work, but then the fact that you can do it, and I've gotten support from participants and event people and race directors and things like that, and gotten encouragement and support for kind of the higher end of the price point on a per locker rental that I'm thinking about, it started to make it look very much more viable and have much more solid legs.
That's good, because I think it's a great idea. I mean,
Thank you.
I've experienced all these things myself. So you could either lease it to an event organizer.
Yes, if you would like it, you know, I can bring it to you and drop it off, and, you know, maybe train some of your staff or volunteers about what they need to know, and then I leave and I go ride or run, and I'm happy to do that.
And then people pay to use the lockers, and what do you anticipate they would pay to use the locker?
So when I first started this, I was thinking in the $3 to $5 range, and all the event people that I've talked to said, do $5, they'll pay it.
Okay, all right, that's my question for now.
Sure, thank you.
And my question is, first, is this a conceptual drawing here, or is this actual
Yes,
in production?
That's
Okay.
my talented graphic design
Well, it looks
Photoshop.
very nice, I get it. And how many lockers are on there?
You do the math, that on one side and that on the other side with an aisle down the middle facing in the 150 locker range.
Okay, and where would you have production?
So there's a very robust, refurbished, recycled locker market, go figure, which allows me to keep my production costs down, and the stuff that's out there is relatively recent. There's inventory of not that old stuff. It has very robust hardware. It's mechanical as opposed to some of the electronic stuff that's out there. You know, like they just redid the rec center in Loveland, and they're cool. They put the set your own code and remember your own number thing, but this is going to be out and about and dragging around in the weather, and I want to keep things as simple as possible from a mechanical standpoint. So I've gotten some quotes from some local folks who are talented with the torch and other tools, and I'll get the fabrication done in Loveland.
And staffing, I can't remember staffing. What
Well,
it's
so
like.
I'm hitting the road first year,
Yeah.
and then as soon as I can make the math work, then I'll hire somebody to do that and do the more management, sales, event arrangement kind of duties. And then every time we add a trailer, we add an employee.
Got it.
So I like the idea a lot.
Thank you.
Have read into that issue frequently, actually, and I would pay $5. The bigger question, I'm not following the financials of it very well.
Nor am I, frankly. You know, I've been working with the Loveland Center for Business Development,
Yep.
and so we've tweaked it, and we think we have some of the stuff that we need, and I think that it has legs, you know, with or without prize money. But I
So
understand the question.
like that said, year 3, what kind of money does the business make?
I've got 2 trailers rolling, and I've got some sponsorship running, and so I think my totals there are. Sorry. So I'm up in the mid 80s, low 90s total income.
Net income?
Yes.
And so the other question I had is reading through the business plan, I noticed your competition.
Yes.
And there's a number of them where either the web page is not working or the phone number is not working and that.
Yes.
So just curious as a viability issue, right? Like you
Yeah,
identified some huge
Yeah.
potential gaps that the other people have and some
Absolutely.
cost constraints.
Right.
So curious about what you're thinking about that and
Sure.
why is this one going to work and the other ones are kind of struggling?
Well, I don't think anybody's looked at it from the angle that I have yet. You know, I'm not investing $150,000 in a rig. I'm not forcing the setup and the handling and the logistics, as well as the very significant freight costs involved when it comes to shipping from wherever these, you know, kind of semi-permanent, semi-temporary locker people come from. And so, you know, I mean, I think that's the big thing is, you know, I can be small, nimble, I can be flexible, I can hit a 5K in the morning and I can hit a jazz fest at night over the course of a weekend. You know, I can, I mean, obviously, the closer I can stay to home and the more I can book some multi-day events, then my labor cost goes down, my fuel cost goes down, and that perks up the numbers. But, you know, it's just one of those things where the initial investment in hardware is killing the other guys. out of Chicago, and the cost and logistics of packing up the lockers and shipping them halfway across the country is killing that other model.
And so the other question assuming, I get the idea, and assuming it works, right, and cash flows and that, the scale that's presented is hard for an investor, given what you're asking for, to say, well, this is a moneymaker, right?
Sure.
And so I want to hear your thoughts about that.
Right.
Because at least for me personally as an investor, would want it to run up, have a better potential return.
Yeah, I would too.
And then secondly is the amount of cash you need to get started is less than what could be awarded here. And if you award more, what does that mean?
Yeah, sure. So let's see. So a couple of things. I believe that it is scalable and replicatable. I think that even if I can't get to the point where I can franchise it, I think I can at least set it up where I can sell some trailers and I can sell the model under a license agreement and not worry about the ongoing support of a franchise. And then from there, I mean, I've had some unsolicited investment offers. I've had interest from the Cincinnati area and the Las Vegas area, personal connections. But I've had people say, help me do this once you get this thing on its feet.
So there's a broader market.
Yes, absolutely. And it won't work everywhere. I mean, Colorado is a spot where per capita we probably have more events than most places. But the more, then a metro area in particular, if you're talking about a specific market, is going to be attractive in many cases. And then in terms of the money, yes, because I wanted to keep the startup costs low and I wanted to figure out a way to make it work, right? I can get on the road and get out there and start serving some events for between 12 and 15 all told. When I first sat down, I went my wish list of everything I needed to do it. I came out in the 20 to 25 range and that math didn't work, so I reeled it in and I figured out a way that made sense.
So out of that comment, Colorado being one of the bigger events, and your assumption on what kind of market share you can achieve produces about 80,000. That's a per market potential? If I'm trying to think about what the...
Yeah, I think if you get into dense enough areas, I mean, there's a ton of events in Vegas, and through the winter in particular because of the weather patterns there. But if you go into a relatively, the eastern seaboard, or some places where there's maybe a few mid to larger size cities linked, and you can serve those relatively easily with a couple hours drive on either end of the day.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's open up any questions from our audience? We have, yes, sir.
Stand up and just shout real loud. Yes, I am. You mentioned earlier about simplifying the lockers.
Yes.
Did you mean like combination locks or key locks?
Primarily, I don't want to, God knows I don't want to manage an inventory of 150 locks and keys in terms of a padlock. So, there's some locker technology out. It's a little bit dated. It's a couple generations old, but they have these brass tokens, and you can't, they have slots in them, and you can't use just any old slug, and it's not going to take a quarter. So, I or my assistant or whoever I have running the day's operations are there exchanging the token for the day fee for the locker, and then I can set the mechanics of the lock so that it doesn't keep your token, like maybe you've gone to the swim, the swim club in the summer and you locked it up and you get the little safety pin with your key. And so I can set it so that it'll give you your token back, so you can get in and out of your locker all day for your set fee or for the duration of that event or whatever.
How much, you might have said this, but how much do you anticipate each trailer costing to produce?
From the refurbished market and the also very robust used trailer market, I can get a trailer, the lockers and the trailer and the fabrication done for in the $6,500 to $7,500 range.
Good. Any other questions? Yes, I'm going the same.
What are you going to do at the end of the event when there's still clothes or whatever in the locker?
Yeah, well, so there's some pretty simple, pretty affordable mass text messaging technology available. And so one of the things that we can do is we can take a cell phone or an email and, half an hour before the event wraps up, and obviously we'll have signage or some sort of instruction to the users about how long we're going to be there and when we're leaving. And so we can send out a mass text or a series of texts or emails as we get closer to when we're taking off. And then the other thing is, well, my friends in Chicago with the Death Star have a page on their website that is basically fill out this form and send it to us and describe, give us the locker number and describe the contents, and then we'll FedEx it to you at cost. Sorry that you were forgetful.
Yes, go ahead.
So obviously you'll have some costs beyond the initial investment. In the
Yeah, absolutely.
Trailer, you'll have some customer service costs.
Uh-huh.
Have you figured your break-even point?
Yeah, I think it's in the conservative and also sort of modest budgeting that I did. I think it's around the 32K mark in terms of revenue generated year over year.
32K, so how many rentals would that be? Divide by 5.
That gets up into... we're into 2 trailers running, probably 80, 90 days a year at least.
So I guess maybe a good way to think about it would be to assume a certain percentage of rental at an event.
Yes, absolutely.
You probably won't rent 100%.
No. And in some cases, though, I might turn, much like a restaurant, I might turn some tables. I might get more than 100%. It won't be common.
And so, I think an investor would want to know how, given a roster of typical summer events,
Yes.
how many events would it take
Right.
for you to reach break even with 2 trailers?
Yeah. Well, with 1 trailer, I'm happy and building and looking for more at 70. And so at 2, I'm looking for 140.
140 events?
Yes, or 140 days of operation.
Days of
Yeah.
events.
And like I said, in some cases I can serve a couple events on a given day, depending on, because even me, I'm a slow 10K runner, and I'll be in and out of there in an hour. And so, I'm not going to kill a whole day serving a 10K or a 5K. I'm not, a lot of times a music festival or event or a portion of that might be part of the day or an evening.
Very good. Yes.
Brad, just to clarify based on that answer though, so there's 3 revenue streams, because rentals, you mentioned sponsorships,
Right?
and then you said something about the event planners actually paying you to have it?
Yeah, so there are event planners who, my friends at Endurance Sports Marketing recognize that they have to deal with the consumer relations side of things. And so in many cases, they do or are expected to set up like a coat check. Or if they don't set up a coat check, they have the start-finish line in the announcer's booth, and they're playing DJ, and they're giving out prizes and promoting their vendors and their sponsors, and people are coming up and saying, hey, would you hold can I stick my sweatshirt underneath your, and so, rather than dealing with that and a lost and found, as much good as it does their wardrobe, rather than dealing with that and a lost and found, or having to pay a couple of people to run a coat check, then they can bring me on site, pay me to be there and take that hassle out of their equation, and also provide a higher level of customer service to people that are participating.
Very good. Brad, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That concludes our presentations today. Did you guys have any announcements about Bravo tonight or anything of that nature? Yes.
Yeah, let's say something about Bravo. Let's go ahead. Good to see you. Thanks for coming.
Jeff.
Yes,
Jeff.
you know this Jeff.
I know Jeff. Jeff, no.
Greg, good to see you. Good to see you. Well, just thanks for coming and supporting this today. This is a great, great concept that has evolved quite a bit in 3 years, wouldn't you say? And it's my hope that it will continue to grow, where more and more money is brought forth for the challenge, which of course will bring more talented young entrepreneurs, and it'll help attract very smart judges too, who can really help you find the way. And then there's Greg, honestly. So it's great, and thanks for helping out. And if you don't have a ticket to Bravo Entrepreneur, I'm afraid you can't come because it's sold out, literally. But NCBR will be celebrating its 13th annual Bravo Entrepreneur of the Year Awards tonight at Union Colony Civic Center. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Jess, we can other talk about this. We'll obviously get the winners, and we'll post that online a little bit later on this evening too. Thank you all for coming. Now we have the hard, tough job ahead of us, don't we? Great. Have a great evening. Thank you, everybody.